Welcome to the Master Your Mindset and Metabolism podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Dunlap, creator of the Metabolism Reboot Academy and kellydunlap.com. I am a mindset and metabolism coach who helps female entrepreneurs reprioritize their health, balance their hormones, and reboot their metabolism so they can regain their energy, finally lose the weight, and feel confident in their own skin. I help women break up with the start-over syndrome, all or nothing mindset, help get them off the diet wagon so they can create a consistent plan for a sustainable, healthy lifestyle free of diets. In this podcast, we will talk about all things mindset, metabolism, the role our hormones play in all of this, and how to reboot your mindset and metabolism so you can finally step into your new empowered life. Thank you so much for being here and pressing play. Now let's begin. Hey, Kelly here. I am super excited to share this episode because this actually is a Facebook Live that I am sharing, and I talk a lot about something that's super personal, and I cannot wait for you to hear this because this is really part of my growth process and some of the shame and some of the realizations that I had about myself, especially in my career at Ford Motor Company. Some people don't know that I was an administrative assistant for many years, and honestly, it was like death to my soul. However, I am honestly so grateful for the opportunities. Don't get me wrong on that. But when you are sitting in a position where it is completely misaligned with your values and who you truly are and what you're passionate about, it really does feel awful. And that's why it is so important to understand your values, who you are, the things you desire, and the path that you want to go on. And in this episode, I talk a lot about that and the importance of really knowing what it is that you want, but also more importantly, staying true to you, having boundaries, but also recognizing that you must pay attention to how you're showing up in the world, because people take you seriously in the sense that if you are continuously showing people that you're going to, let's say, embark on something and you're never following through, how that is going to affect you in other areas in your life, whether you realize it or not. But I created this episode in particularly because of that, and that's where that very personal story comes in for me. So I'm really excited for you to hear this. I hope that this hits home for you. And without further ado, my friend, here is the episode. Good morning, friend. Kelly Dunlap here. I hope I'm live. I always get mixed messages. Like it'll say you're live, or it'll say you can reach more people if you put a title. And then I put a title, and then there's nothing that ever shows up. So I always get so confused. Anyway, good morning. Happy Tuesday to you, top of the morning to you, even though it's almost 11 o'clock. I had gone live earlier sometime last week, and there was a storm, and I got cut off and all the things, and I promised that I would come back, so here I am. And I wanted to jump on and share with you some steps that I figured out, I would say on my own, but then also too, I would be lying if I didn't share the fact that, having coaches and, of course, along the way always helped. I'm sharing to my group right now, too. So wanted to just come on and give you a little bit of insight as to how you can go about making change. And perhaps you could be in a position of wondering why you embark on making change, but then you find yourself not being able to stick to the desired change that you want. And I think that this is a very, very, very overlooked step, and I wish I would have known this years ago, because it would have saved me a lot of pain and suffering along the way. So anywho, Kelly Dunlap here, functional nutrition counselor and hormonal wellness specialist. So I wanted to jump on and share this with you because it is really important, and it is the foundation. So think of like if you were to build a new house, you wouldn't say, hey, let's go find a lot on some quicksand. That just wouldn't work. People would look at you like you were crazy, like what in the hell are you doing, right? So I think that when we embark on making change, a lot of times people are just not thinking about the solid foundation that they need to set in place in order to make their change successful and have that support beneath them, if that makes sense. So the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about today, and this is also the topic that I had mentioned too in a previous live, but I got cut off, but this is such an important topic that I wanted to come up live again and complete this, because it has to do with having integrity and setting boundaries for yourself. And at the core of that, though, it's really about knowing your values and getting very, very clear on your values. So, for example, one of the first things that I do with my one-on-one clients, for example, is we get very clear on their values. And why is that? Well, I think values is something that just kind of gets tossed around. I think that people think that they have values, but they don't really know exactly what their values are, or perhaps they don't really know what it means. I know that was me for a long time. I really didn't understand what values were. I heard the term, but I didn't really understand it. Never really cared, to be honest with you, and I never really realized that I had such a lack of values when it came to so many things. And looking back, I think, which we all have guilt and shame around certain things, right? But looking back, I can see where I did not have values and how I hurt a lot of people. I hurt myself, and I remained stagnant and stuck. And then once I realized, throughout the years and really getting clear on how important your values are and why they are such a solid foundation for you, that's when I really started to full on step into values. Now, values are really important also in the sense that it makes your life easier, and I'm going to explain to you why. When you are very clear on your values and when you know exactly what your values are, things that are out of alignment with you, meaning that things that do not feel good to you, oftentimes we get this, God, that person just doesn't, I just don't like the way I feel around that person, or I just don't understand why I feel this way at my job, or maybe you're in a new relationship and this person does something and you're looking at them like, what? And then they start to repeat these certain behaviors and you're just like, I just can't put my finger on it, but I just don't feel good about it. Well, that is basically a misalignment of values is what that is, okay? So clearly this is a backdrop, but I'm just trying to fix the alignment there. So it's the values that are misaligned. So for example, if I have somebody that says I'm miserable in my job, but I know what their values are, and I'll start to ask them about well, tell me about your job and why do you feel like it's miserable? Well, my boss, they said one thing and then they did another and then they just keep doing that, and and I just feel like that they just keep lying to me, right? But then I say, okay, well, let's look at your value list. And let's say high on their value list is honesty, trustworthy, caring, personal growth, or even integrity, right? And that right there is a good example as to why that person feels extremely misaligned with that boss or that job, because those things are really high on their value list, but this person is not making them feel very safe, right? Because there's all these misalignments with the values. So if they're saying one thing and they're doing another, lack of integrity and dishonesty. If they are not following through with their word, well, then that's lack of trust. So do you see what I mean? So that's really important. Now, this isn't just about, a job, right? This has to do with everything in your life. And more importantly, this has everything to do with you and the way that you operate on a day-to-day basis. So oftentimes when clients and I go through this process, integrity is a big one, right? So I know for me, integrity is probably one of my top, probably the tippy top value of mine. And what we often come across is people will say, well, gosh, I expect integrity from other people, but I have no integrity to myself. And for a lot of people, that is mind blowing, because they're like, well, how is it that I can expect that from others, but I don't expect that from myself? So if you are somebody that you find yourself, let's say, not following through with things, or you say one thing and you do another, this could be an example of why it is important for you to get very clear on your values. Now, this again has a lot to do with that solid foundation and making things easier in your life. So when I had said just a moment ago that when you're clear on your values, like why it's important, not only does it set the foundation so that you have a very clear vision as to where you desire to go, but it also helps you to get very clear on the people, places, and things that you want to surround yourself by. So, for example, again, the job example is a very, very good example in the sense where you will find that, okay, if I feel misaligned in my job and I'm there 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, I'm going to be feeling like it's death to my soul because I am around this environment, complete value misalignment. And what is that going to do? It's going to create stress and anxiety in your life. Hence, what does that do? That causes issues with perhaps your behaviors when it comes to any type of results that you desire. Do you see? So it's like the way that I operate in everything. So it's a very functional way of seeing things, even when it comes to the mind, right? I have to back things up and really get down to the root. And the root for this example that I'm sharing is getting clear on the values, because if you're clear on the values, you wouldn't be in a job position, or you wouldn't be working in a place where you feel that misaligned. You would be hightailing it out there looking for another job so that you find some place that actually feels really great. Or perhaps it could be something where you're like, okay, fuck it, I'm just going to create my own business. That's what I did. You know, it was like I was a private contractor for many, many years, but I was always working for somebody. You know, I always had that commitment to someone and always operated under their desires, and it was their dream. And then 5 years ago was when I decided that was not aligned with me anymore. So I jumped, and I've been weaving my net ever since, and basically creating the life that I desire and the feelings that I desire on a day-to-day basis, right? So my success has everything to do with myself, but more importantly, it has everything to do with the values, right? But also, too, it's not just a business, and it's not just a job. It's not that. It's even your physical being. Because if you feel like you are in this box and it's like misery, like you have no idea how often I hear people just say how miserable they're in their relationships, how miserable that they are in certain friendships, how miserable that they are in certain job positions, and most of that has to do with the fact that they are not clear on their values and recognizing that it's a misalignment. Because let me tell you, when you're very clear on your values and you know exactly what you need and where you are going and what type of environment is going to be a thriving environment for you, which is meaning quote unquote aligned with your values, you will thrive, and you will know what is a hell yes and what is a hell no for you. There is none of the, well, I don't know, and maybe, and I'm not sure, and I can't put my finger on it. You know, there's no uncertainty there. You just know, you just have this sense of, okay, I know that this person is completely not aligned with my values, so they need to go, or I need to put them at arm's length, or I can't work with them anymore, whatever it means, right? Because it doesn't do good things for my soul. Or you might find like, oh my God, this person is so aligned with me and my values. We see the world through the same lens. It's easy. It flows. Whenever I'm around them, we are definitely lifting each other up and we're moving in the right direction together. That could be a coworker. That could be your personal trainer. That could be your hairdresser. That could be your friend. It could be, you know, the person that you see at the gym. It could be the person you're in relationship with, whatever it might be. Right? And so this is super important when it comes to any type of change that you want to make. So first and foremost, building a solid foundation. So, you know, the heading of this is basically saying you want to change. Well, this is your first step. You have to have integrity and set boundaries, and here is why. Now, you're saying, you're like, could be thinking, well, you're saying this, but you're talking about values. But honestly, integrity is a value, and boundaries basically comes with ease when you know your values. So that's another benefit of understanding what your values are, because it organically happens, meaning that you don't have to necessarily have difficult conversations with people when you know your values. You just don't really hang out with them anymore, or the boundaries just come more easy. Like it's just a lot more natural and organic in the sense. Now, I'm not saying that you don't ever have to have a difficult conversation with people that are misaligned with you. Sometimes it is necessary, and sometimes those things do happen. It just is what it is. It's just a part of life, right? But setting boundaries and understanding where you're going, most importantly, and getting very clear on that is where those boundaries come in. So oftentimes what people will say, well, I want to lose weight and I'm starting this journey, and then all of a sudden it's 5 days later and they were influenced perhaps with, by maybe their husband. Like a lot of times it's husbands too. They say, oh, come on, just have a bowl of ice cream. It's just one. Because oftentimes, when people are eating something or drinking something, it always makes them feel more comfortable or better when somebody else is doing it with them. You know what I mean? There's always going to be that. But if you're really clear on, hey, you know what, that's not in alignment with where I'm heading right now. Thank you, but no thank you. I really appreciate it. I hope that you enjoy the ice cream. But, hey, I appreciate the offer. And that's a boundary right there. Just basically sticking to your word, right? Sticking to your word, which is the integrity, and you were able to set a boundary with ease because it's not in alignment with where you're going. Okay. So, I talked quite a bit about values, which is really important. And it's something, a value elicitation is something that is extremely, extremely important. I actually do value elicitations with my clients. And it's very, very interesting. It's a very tedious process, but man, oh man, it really can change things. I've had people change careers. I've had people leave relationships, and I'm not, applauding a relationship breakup, but I'm applauding the fact that they recognize that something was no longer serving them and that they were not in a relationship that empowered them, that it only made them feel worse. And then they found themselves doing what? When you don't feel good and you're stressed out and have the anxiety, then those behaviors can lead to binge eating, not eating well, acting erratic, stepping into the behaviors that are going to take you further away from where you desire to go. So I hope that makes sense. So that, my friend, is what I wanted to share about making change. Setting that solid foundation. Your first step truly is figuring out your values, to be honest, but for most people, it is about having integrity to your word, meaning staying true to that word, and also setting boundaries. And the values is really the best way for you to figure out how to get to that point. So when it comes to having integrity to your word, that just means being true to you. It means meaning what you say and saying what you mean. And every time that you say something and don't follow through, you're just breaking trust with yourself and you're breaking trust with others. And this leads me to where my last live had gotten cut off. And the example that I provided here was, if you are somebody who says one thing and does another, and you're constantly doing that, again, you're losing trust within yourself, so therefore you're going to lack worth and confidence moving forward, because it's just like adding to your pile of shame, to be honest. Now, the other important side of that I really wanted to hit home on is that if you find yourself in a position whenever you say, hey, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and then you find that people are not supportive, or they are just kind of like, okay, yeah, here we go again, and they're kind of rolling your eyes, and you just feel like defeated because you feel like people are looking at you and not taking you seriously. Well, you have to own responsibility in the sense that there's a reason for that. The reason that they are responding to you like that is because the way that you have shown up to having lack of integrity in the past, meaning that you have said one thing, that you were going to do it, you were all in, it's different this time. And if you have been somebody who has done that over and over and over again, well, you're going to lose trust from other people as well. So definitely keep that in mind. So an example that I like to use is, let's say you are working for a company and there is a position that opens up. And this is just, humans are observant, and that's just the way that it is, right? People might say, well, this isn't fair because what if I qualified more? But the thing of it is when it comes down to the way that you show up on a daily basis, is always going to be taken into consideration. It just is. So here's an example. Let's say you have Sally Sue, who is somebody who is always doing something new, or she's innovative, and let's just say she is a runner. Okay, let's just say she's a runner and she's consistently showing up saying, hey, I signed up for this 5K, and then maybe she signed up for another 5K, and then she did a 10K, and then she's doing a marathon, and people are really noticing this. Like, it's really becoming part of her identity, so to speak. So she comes in, she's really, really regimented, and again, this is just part of her personal life, but yet, when we're at work, oftentimes we have conversations and people are noticing like what you're doing, and the things that we talk about are usually the things that we're doing and we're excited about. So you could clearly see that she's dedicated, and she's, setting boundaries. She's not going to happy hours because she has to go and train for her runs, or she is bringing in her lunches and she's opting out of having lunch ordered in like everybody else is, because she is focused on being her healthiest and having the best energy for her upcoming run. And this is a consistent thing that has been going on for quite some time. People start to take notice. People are also starting to really admire her dedication and consistency, because they see that, wow, she's really dedicated and she's somebody, who is really following through. Okay. Then you have, I think that one was Sally, right? Then we've got Susie. All right. Susie, she is somebody who, it seems like, every week, every Monday, she's complaining about how she blew her diet over the weekend. You might see her bring her salads and her fruits and her yogurts, and then, she'll talk about how, she's on this diet, and that, it's different this time, and, her friend lost 20 pounds on this one thing, so she's going to do it too, and blah, 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 the whole 9 yards. But then Thursday comes and she gets invited to happy hour, right? And then she's like, well, you know what? I could probably just go, to happy hour, and it's no big deal. But then at happy hour, they're ordering nachos and, fried pickles and nacho chips and cheese or whatever, right? And then people start to see that, she's kind of binging, right? Like all out, just verbally saying, you know what, fuck it. This is so fun. I am so glad that you invited me. I am just having the time of my life. I'm just going to take this weekend and I'm just going to have whatever I want and do whatever I want, right? And then there she is. She's like off the wagon, and people see this, right? Now, let's just say it's one time, no big deal. But then this behavior continues. And maybe it's not a happy hour thing, but let's just say she, has nothing to do with the workplace temptation, and she just will one day come in and she's ordering a pizza, and somebody might say, oh, I thought you were on this diet. And she would say, well, I don't know. I just don't really know if it's the right time for me. I just don't know if it's something that I really want to deal with. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of stressful right now. Boating season's coming and, that kind of stuff. Plus, I have my sister's bachelorette party coming and, all of that, right? So very inconsistent. She doesn't stay true to her word. There's a lack of integrity. She obviously has, issues when it comes to commitment to herself. So she is kind of losing trust with others. So they're just like, oh, here she goes again. It's a different week. So it's a different diet, different story, different whole thing. Now, the point to my story is, the whole reason why I was prefacing this is because let's say a promotion opens up and Sally and Susie both apply, and they're both right here, right? Their qualifications are the same. The people who are interviewing her really like her, and they feel like, okay, they're both very impressive on paper, but now we really need to make a decision. And when they really think about how they have shown up as an individual, what do you think is going to be taken into account? the way that they have shown up on a personal level. It's just human nature. Okay? So I don't know about you, but I would probably hire Sally, and again, there's no judgment here, but it just comes down to who can I trust or who can I rely on that is not going to be erratic and that is going to be consistent. Of course, it's going to be the girl who's the runner, because she has consistently shown that she can stick to something, she's trustworthy, she has integrity to her word. So therefore, how we do one thing is how we do everything, right? So I just wanted to bring this to your attention because maybe this is something that you have experienced, because the story I just described to you is basically a story that had happened to me. Okay, I was not the girl that was the runner and, the one who had integrity to her word and all the things. I was the one who always showed up, who was inconsistent, and who was erratic in her behaviors and always had this stronger desire to do all of those other things and show up in a way that people really started to lose trust in me, and I don't fucking blame them. Right. So if you don't know my history, I worked at Ford Motor Company. I was an administrative assistant for many years. I actually lost my job there. And, it was because of my behaviors and not, being true to me. I let a lot of my erratic behaviors get in my way. And there was a lot of people that trusted, had really put faith in me, and I failed to show up, right? And so I just want to share this with you because it is just so important for you to recognize that these are the behaviors that matter the most. And these are the behaviors that are going to pull you through. Excuse me, getting emotional. But it's so true, right? So when you are somebody who is in decision and steps into that decision and makes those choices according to where you desire to go, it is very, very important for you to remember that the choices that you're making today are going to stick with you, and they are going to become your reality in the future, right? So, for example, I saw a post just the other day about the choices that you had made 3 or 5 years ago is in direct reflect of the current reality that you have today, and that could not be more true, right? So I share that, I share this story with you with love because I want you to understand how important it is. And every time that you set out to do something, I want you to know that you can truly stick with it. And it's just it is a temporary moment of fulfillment that you are basically sacrificing that commitment of, staying engaged in your goals and staying true to your word. That feels way better. That feels so much better than being the person that is this constant, up and down, up and down, up and down, because you feel great about making the decision, but you're only able to stick with it for so long because there's a lack of integrity and lack of boundaries. And then you find yourself, again, starting over and over and over again, and then you're in this vicious cycle of a hamster wheel. So I hope that helps to, give you some clarity, and maybe this is something that has full on resonated with you. And maybe this is something that you have never in a gazillion years ever thought of. Or maybe this is something that you're like, oh my gosh, that is totally me. And I had no idea that I could possibly be viewed in this way. Or I had no idea that was really affecting me in my professional life, right? So to be honest with you, my tenure as being a administrative assistant, working at Ford Motor Company, I also worked at Motorola. I worked at Chrysler for a short time. That truly did feel like death to my soul. And I think that was one of the reasons why I was, very erratic. One of the reasons why, there was many things going on in my life. But I think that was one of the reasons why, was because I was very misaligned with my job choice, sitting behind a desk and and doing all of that administrative stuff. It just was not something that was ideal for my specific makeup, for me as a human. And I sabotaged it. You know, I was not only sabotaging things in my life, I was sabotaging my career. And then once I finally decided to really step into authenticity within myself and being true to me is when I decided that, okay, this is the direction that I need to go. And that's when I went into the fitness world full time, because at that time I had been working in the gyms and teaching aerobics and things like that since I was 18. So that was like my side gig for many years. And it was just basically, like it shouldn't have, I should have just stepped into that whole fitness and wellness world back then, but I didn't have the confidence. I just stepped into I have these skills from office block, from being in from high school, and that's what I needed to do. But it also provided me insurance and really cool things. Like, I mean, let's face it, when I worked at Ford Motor Company, I went to a lot of like really cool concerts and all these amazing things, and I met some awesome people, and I'm still friends with some people even now, but I know they looked at me like I was just a fucking nut job, and I don't blame them. And I'm surprised that, the friends that I had made even, back then are still friends with me, because I was just wild. I was just like a wild fucking animal that had no self-control, no integrity, and I was just a crazy human being. So I do not regret any of that. I used to harbor a ton of shame, and that is definitely, something that I have done a ton of work around. And I can now look back without feeling the sickness in my stomach and the feeling of, oh my God, I can't believe the way that I used to operate and the way that I showed up at work, and just even the clothes that I would wear, like really short skirts. And it was just crazy, just thinking about all that stuff, that version of me. I'm just so different and so far from that person. So it just goes to show you that you can grow, you can change. You just have to embrace the desired version of yourself, and you just keep going after that person, and you just keep moving forward. So if you've made it through this entire live, I appreciate you listening, and I hope that this provided some value, and I hope that this actually helped you. And also, if you know somebody that you feel would benefit from this story, I would be so grateful for you to share. So have a wonderful day, my friend, and I will be seeing you soon. Take care. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you love what you heard, please be sure to share it with me by leaving a review on iTunes. If you aren't already following me on social media, come find me on Facebook by searching Kelly Dunlap Lifestyle and Nutrition, or come join me in my Master Your Mindset and Metabolism Facebook group by going to kellydunlap.com/group. I cannot wait to connect with you on the next episode.